I am Maria Garcia de Fleury. The prophet Elijah is one of the most interesting and colorful people in the Bible. We know nothing about his family nor his birth. The Bible tells of Elijah encountering a widow in a neighboring country, and through her obedience to Elijah's request, God provided enough food for Elijah, the woman, and her son. Miraculously, the widow's barrel of flour and jar of oil never ran out, teaching all of us that if we walk in communion with the Lord and obey Him, we will be open to His will. And when we are in God's will, He meets all our needs, and His mercy towards us is never in short supply. At another time, Elijah appears as the central character in a confrontation with the prophets of the false god Baal on Mount Carmel, who called on their God all day long to make it rain, and nothing happened. Then Elijah built an altar of stones, invoked God, and God made fire come down from heaven, burned the sacrifice, the wood, and rain began to pour abundantly, demonstrating that Elijah's God was more powerful than the false gods. Elijah was a human being, just as we are, but he prayed to God in faith. The power of prayer is in God, not in our human nature. Friends, when we focus on all the events of life, we can take our eyes off the Lord and become discouraged. Elijah was a man who listened to God. Even in times of adversity and discouragement, Elijah remained faithful. God shows himself powerfully in wind, fire, earthquakes, but he also relates to us in an intimate and personal way, like a silent whisper. God meets our physical needs, encourages us to examine our own thoughts and behaviors. God instructs how to proceed and assures that we are not alone. When we listen to God's voice and walk in obedience to His word, we can find encouragement, victory, and reward. Elijah struggled with his typical human weaknesses, and yet he trusted God. It may not be through such obviously miraculous displays of power, but if we surrender to God, God can also use us mightily for the purposes of His kingdom. Elijah stories can be comfort and encouragement to us. He appears in the Old Testament and in the four Gospels and epistles. Even he appears in the transfiguration of Jesus. Being a strong person of God does not mean that we will never feel discouraged, but it means looking to God when we have problems, difficulties, and adverse situations. Elijah felt alone and did not understand God's plan, but he still sought God. In return, he constantly saw the power of God manifested in his weaknesses. When he raised the widow's son from the dead, when he triumphed on Mount Carmel, because of his faithfulness, Elijah was one of the few individuals in the Bible who was taken to heaven, because despite his weaknesses, he was willing to listen to the voice of God and obey Him, convinced that with God we always win.